December 21st, 1989, Bucharest. Cold wind swept across Palace Square, where over 100,000 Romanians stood in forced attendance. Nicolae Ceaușescu, Romania's iron-fisted ruler of 24 years, stepped onto the balcony of the Communist Party headquarters, expecting applause. He had summoned a crowd to denounce unrest in Timisoara and reassert his grip. At first, the square was eerily silent. Ceaușescu began his speech.
Dragi tovarăși și prieteni, cetățeni ai capitalei României socialiste.
Touting his achievement with rehearsed conviction. Then, a sound. A high-pitched shout turned into a roar.
București, considerând aceasta ca o
Within seconds, the tide shifted. Boos echoed. Ceaușescu froze. His eyes widened in disbelief. On live television, millions saw their dictator rattled, confused, powerless. He raised his hands, stammering,
Allo!
as if pleading with an earthquake. In desperation, he offered a $13 wage increase, an insult that only amplified the fury. Below, chaos surged. Protesters began pushing towards the building. His wife Elena muttered, "It must be an earthquake." But this was no act of nature. It was rebellion. By nightfall, fires lit the capital. The myth of Ceaușescu's control shattered in full view of the nation. To grasp the impact of the moment, you have to understand the darkness that came before. Ceaușescu's Romania was one of Europe's most brutal dictatorship, a Stalinist state cloaked in nationalism and paranoia. The Securitate, his secret police, were everywhere. Jokes could get you arrested. Children were taught to inform on their parents. Surveillance was suffocating. And it was not just fear, it was hunger, cold and silence. In the 1980s, Ceaușescu imposed extreme austerity to repay foreign debts. He exported food and fuel while his people starved. Bread, electricity, medicine were rationed to the bone. Blackouts were common. Supermarket shelves were bare. Apartments froze in winter. Malnutrition soared. Infant mortality became Europe's highest. Meanwhile, Ceaușescu built palaces, paved grand boulevards, and plastered his portrait across the country. He called himself the genius of the Carpathians. The people called him something else, not just out loud. The first crack in the regime didn't come from Bucharest. It came from a small church in Timisoara. On December 16, 1989, people gathered to prevent the eviction of a Hungarian pastor named Laszlo Tőkés. He had criticized the regime and the state wanted him silenced. But his parishioners formed a human wall. Passers-by joined. The crowd grew. When the authorities lied and said the eviction was cancelled, the people saw through it and then chanted something dangerous. The Securitate responded with tear gas and beatings. Protesters burned party offices and tore down portraits, but the violence only drew more people. By the next day, crowds returned singing Dictator Romani, a band anthem of national awakening. Troops opened fire, blood spilled across the city, yet the crowd kept growing. By December 20th, over 100,000 filled Timisoara's central square, chanting, "We are the people, Ceaușescu is falling." In a stunning turn, the army began refusing to shoot. Some soldiers even joined the crowd. Ceaușescu had lost control of one of Romania's major cities. Ceaușescu returned from a trip to Iran to find his country in revolt, but he still believed he could rally the capital. That's why he held the infamous rally on December 21st, Instead, it collapsed in real time. That night, protests exploded across Bucharest. Students and workers filled University Square. Barricades were erected. Armored vehicles rolled through the streets. Gunfire lit up the night. Dozens were killed, but by morning, the crowd had only grown larger. Then came a turning point. On the morning of December 22nd, Ceaușescu's defense minister, General Vasile was found dead, officially a suicide, but most believed he had been murdered for refusing to carry out orders to massacre civilians. That death broke the army's loyalty. Soldiers stopped shooting. Some ripped the Red Star from their uniform and joined the people. Inside the Central Committee building, Ceaușescu shouted orders to generals who had stopped listening. Outside, the streets were flooded. Protesters stormed the ground floor. The revolution had breached the gates. Ceaușescu and Elena were rushed to the rooftop by bodyguards. A white Eurocopter hovered above. Moments later, it lifted off, seconds ahead of the angry crowd. At 11:44 a.m., the Ceaușescus took off, clinging to power by a thread. The pilot, Lieutenant Colonel Vasile Muletan, was ordered to fly to Snagov, a residence outside the city. There, Ceaușescu tried to rally loyal troops, only to hear back, "There has been a revolution. You are on your own." Soon after, military air control warned all unauthorized flights would be treated as hostile. They risked being shot down. Ceaușescu ordered a pilot to land in a field near Găiești, 50 miles from Bucharest. The dictator, his wife, and two guards jumped from the chopper and flagged down a car. Guns drawn, they commandeered in a red Dacia sedan. Ceaușescu sat in the back seat, sweating, briefcase in hand, still clinging to the illusion of control. On the car radio, news of his escape played live. He shouted, "This is a coup. I am still the president." But no one was listening anymore. 3 days later, they were captured and held at a military base in Târgoviște. Romania was still in chaos. Sporadic gunfires echoed in the capital. Strange terrorists were blamed, possibly die-hard securities or confused troops. On December 25, 1989, an emergency military tribunal was convened. The courtroom was a drab officers' mess hall, a camera recording everything. Ceaușescu, 71, still puffed with defiance. Elena, 73, scowled and shouted insults. The charges: 1. Genocide, inflated to 60,000 deaths. 2. Undermining the economy. And 3. Destroying the state. Ceaușescu denied the court's authority. "I am president of Romania. I will be tried by the Grand National Assembly." But the court pressed on. Prosecutors cited mass poverty, starvation, and the murder of peaceful protesters. The trial lasted 90 minutes. Verdict: guilty. Sentence: death. There would be no appeal. At 2:45 p.m. Christmas Day, the Ceaușescus were marched into a snow-covered courtyard. Ropes bound their wrists. They were placed against a wall behind the Târgoviște barracks. Nicolae began singing the Internationale, his last deviant gesture. 3 paratroopers stood ready. A rapid countdown, gunfire, dozens of bullets. In seconds, the couples collapsed. Romania's last dictator lay in the snow. The most violent chapter in its modern history was over. Their corpses were filmed and aired on national television that very night. Millions watched in silence. Some cried, some cheered, but everyone knew nothing would ever be the same again. In the days after Ceaușescu's death, Bucharest remained a war zone. Hundreds died in confusing shootouts. Who were the terrorists? No one knows for sure. Nicolae Ceaușescu once ruled with fear so deep it silenced the nation. But in December 1989, the people spoke louder. They toppled a tyrant in broad daylight, on live TV. In a matter of days, his final words were defiance, but history's final words was written by the Romanian people. It was the last and bloodiest uprising of its kind, suspenseful, tragic, triumphant, and deeply human. The revolution's victory came quickly. Its true legacy that will be measured in generations.